Okay, we're live. Good evening, everybody. It is time for Sabbath Rest Book Talk tonight here on my YouTube channel. I am Erin McCole Cupp, author of the Jane E. Friendless Orphan series, as well as co-editor of Image and Likeness. There's one of our co-hostesses enjoying her tea this evening. And I'd like to introduce our co-hostess. So while we're at that, Rebecca, would you like to hoist your tea mug? And
I have my Little Women themed tea mug for the.
Oh, perfect. Hopefully we can include that in one of our talks one of these months. So that's Rebecca Willen. She is a editor and working on some writing too, right?
Yes, it's writing.
Okay. All right. She blogs over at RESTLESSINDEPENDENT.com, where she writes about and curates content relevant to young adults learning about adulting, the vital skill of adulting. And then our other co-hostess this evening is Carolyn Astfalk. She is the author of Ornamental Graces and Stay With Me, both spicy clean romances. And she also has a forthcoming book called, hold on, drawing a blank, Rightfully Ours.
Yes.
Takes place in my husband's hometown of Williamsport, PA. Go Crosscutters or something like that. I don't even remember what all the sports are. Anyway, so she's got that young adult book coming out this April. So it'll be here in a minute. So Carolyn, you want to just say hi to everybody?
Hello, everybody.
There we go. Yay. What we're talking about tonight is the way that fiction can be used to portray the value of justice. And I kind of like to think of justice as the circumstances created when truth wins, when what is solid and true wins. And we've got 3 books that we've selected that illustrate truth winning and sometimes truth not winning in the end. And that's the one I'm really fired up about. So I want to talk about that tonight. Our selections are for a children's read aloud. We've got Mike Mulligan and his steam shovel. Then there it is. Carolyn's got it up in the corner there. And then we have our young adult selection is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee.
Which is my suggestion, because I got all excited about it this summer.
I'm really curious to see how our conversation on that goes, because that's the one I'm kind of fired up about. And then the other one is the one we all have electronically. We don't have an actual cover copy available, but it is Dying for Revenge by Barbara Golder. And it is an adult, kind of a cozy murder mystery, the first in the series, called The Lady Doc Murders. And it's about a doctor/lawyer. She's a very accomplished woman who is part of the investigation into a serial killer who is haunting the slopes of Telluride, Colorado. So let's start with talking about justice in Mike Mulligan and his steam shovel. So that was the first time when I reread it for tonight, it was the first time I had read it probably in 12 years, because I had read it a couple times to my oldest kids, but I never kind of really paid attention to it. It was one of those things that I don't remember reading it as a kid, and then I read it to my kids when I was like half asleep myself, because there were 2 of them. They're twins, and they never slept, ever. So I therefore never slept. But I really was paying attention to how things worked out in the end, because Mike and Mary Ann steam shovel, which I do think is a cute name for a steam shovel. Mary Ann, it's so sweet. I do think that, like, the truth is that what they did was great, but other things were coming along that could do the same task faster. So what is the just way to treat someone who's not keeping up with the pace that's needed? Is it to exclude that person? Is it to put that person on the spot and pray they fail? Or is it to find a purpose for what they do? So what do you ladies think about how that played out in the end of Mike Mulligan and his steam shovel?
Well, I'll tell you, this is a book I read it when I was a kid, So I remembered it fondly, and then reintroduced it to my kids. And I remember those poor steam shovels in the pit all rusted out.
Right.
I would be so sad for them. And it's interesting. I hadn't thought much of it either in terms of justice until I really read it with an eye for that. And really, Henry B. Swap, he's so concerned with, getting he thinks is fair. He's almost like a Pharisee about it. He's just trying to look to any way he can stick it to Mike and Marianne. So I think the solution in the end where they kind of, okay, Mike didn't really do exactly what he was supposed to, but they work out a solution. I think it turns out pretty well, pretty fair.
I thought it was interesting because it's ultimately not just the story of Mike and Marianne, but it's also the story of Henry B. Swap, because he changes over the course of the story. And finally, I think like one of the smiling in a way that wasn't mean at all.
Yes.
He had finally going through the experience where he thought he was on top. He thought he had everything figured out. And ultimately he realizes that because of this kid, because of these other things happening, that the end result is better than he could have anticipated.
Yeah.
And it's a type of better that he had not anticipated, I think. And I think, like, I remember when I was not first going through it, but when I was going through it to reread to prepare for tonight, that it said, as soon as I saw his name Swap, I'm like, he's the bad guy. He's going to, do a bait and switch sort of thing. And Rebecca, like you just pointed out, in the end, it's like he swapped one worldview for another. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that fiction is really powerful at doing. It can show us, not just tell us, well, this is the way things are supposed to be. It can show us that this is what happens when we let go of our notions of what we want, and what we have to have. And when we see things from a different perspective, that we can really change and grow ourselves. So anyway, any other thoughts on Mike Mulligan and Marianne and Henry Swap?
Well, I think too, it's interesting. Oh, go ahead, Rebecca.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, Carolyn, you go first.
Okay, now what you were saying, it's not just about Mike and Marianne. It's really the whole town comes out there, and they all kind of have a little diversion in a way, and see what's going on. And I think, isn't it the little boy that suggests that they make Mike and Marianne, the furnace and set them up down there? I think so that it's a child that has.
Yeah, it's the little boy that really moves the whole story along, because he sits down to watch, and then he gets everyone else to watch, and then he's the one that comes up with the idea to Marianne is the furnace, and he's kind of the one not quite moving the pieces around, but he's the one that really ties the whole story together.
Yeah,
he's the one that,
yeah, I had no, like I said, I had basically no memory of the story other than it like involved industrial obsoletism. That's really all I remember about Mike Mulligan. But it really like pretty much. But I think like the little boy played that role of being, he was cast as the catalyst. He's the one who made things speed up, like literally, because it says in the story that Mike Mulligan and Marianne work better and they work faster when people are watching. So he's the one who brought everybody to watch. And I guess that's sort of like the power of appreciation too, that when we're appreciated, we tend to want to deliver. I don't know, does that directly relate to justice in any way, or is that, it might be tangential. Anyway.
Giving to things what they are due.
Right.
And to a certain extent, each is as deserving of, and Mike and Marianne, in order to fulfill their purpose, they need the support of everyone else. So in a way that it is related to justice. Well, arts major.
Yeah,
I
see what you're saying. Yeah, because justice, we as humans, we're the only species that cares about justice. I mean, if we left justice in the hands of my dogs, oh my gosh, justice would be who gets the most pepperoni. So we're not just animals. We care about things being fair. Oh, there's a fun question. Is justice the same as fairness?
I don't think so.
Why not?
I'm hearing in my head, my kids, it's not fair. and I think maybe it's a factor of age too. They have a very strict sense of, is it fair or not? And that's always not what's just, definitely from an adult perspective. It's obvious. Fair is more like an equal thing, and just might not mean equal. It might be distributed differently and according to need. So I think there's some similarities, but they're different too.
Yeah, I think
See, my first instinct, I want to go pull out the catechism or the dictionary and find the definition of justice, and both of my reference books are in the other room. So I can't remember the definition of justice.
Yeah, I was the bad woman of faith and didn't look up any, technical definition of justice. I just went with justice is when truth wins. And, like Rebecca was saying, the truth is everybody doesn't need the same thing. And the other truth is, and this will kind of bring us into dying for revenge next, that the truth is that what we deserve might not be what God wants us to have. And I'm talking about like penance for the things that we do wrong. Because there's mercy and justice, there's this tension between the two. And they're not mutually exclusive. Anyway, so let's move on to Dying for Revenge. That's the one by Barbara Golder. I know we jumped from read aloud to adult, but that's because I'm fired up and I want to save To Kill a Mockingbird for the end. So hope you guys can be with me. Okay, so we've got Dying for Revenge. It's murder in the land of, I don't know. Sorry to anybody who's like from Colorado or like loves there, but it just seems like it's murder in the land of indulgence and wealth. I realize there are poor people everywhere, including in Colorado, but Telluride, you get this image of it's wealthy and people can kind of get what they want. And then here comes somebody who's picking them off with, sniper precision. People are terrified in the streets like they usually aren't, obviously. And thank God for that. And thank God this is just fiction. I want to talk about the end without giving it away, but I think the one thread of justice that's kind of going on through here is again that idea that should people get what other people think they deserve?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Who wants to?
Well,
Carolyn?
I think it draws you right into talking about mercy. Because as I was thinking about this book last night, you have characters that are hurt and bitter, and maybe they're seeking revenge. And I almost thought, what? Justice isn't enough to overcome that feeling. It takes mercy to counteract that, I think, to uproot that feeling of vengefulness.
Because one of the things I found interesting in Dying for Revenge is you get kind of, there's really three people that are seeking justice. Because there's the murderer, there's the main character who's still traumatized by the murder of her husband years earlier, and she's still seeking justice and to a certain extent revenge. And then you also have the newspaper reporter whose name I can't remember, who is kind of out to get everybody, but it's because he has his own idea of and what kind of justice they need to receive. And it's interesting when you kind of look at those three in parallel, how they each.
Uh-oh, you're breaking up.
Oh no!
Go back like 30 seconds.
Say a lot in 30 seconds.
I know. That's why I only said go back 30 seconds, not a minute. We're talking about books. Come on.
I think that the three characters seeking revenge.
Yes.
And justice. And the murderer, the main character, and the newspaper reporter who has his own ideas of what everyone else is, what justice needs to be meted out to everyone. I just found it interesting how the three of them interplay and ultimately affect each other. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Carolyn, how about you?
Yeah, that there's such a big, well-developed cast in that book that it is interesting to see that interplay, and you can follow one the other and how they intersect, and then how they change sort of throughout the book. But yeah, they're seeking, I don't know, they think they're seeking justice. I think we all sometimes think we're seeking justice, but sometimes when you look more closely, is that really what I want? Do I want justice? Am I being vengeful? Do I really need mercy? You know, they're kind of hard to discern which is which.
Especially when it's something that's where emotions are tied in very deeply. It's really hard to see past our own hurt and anger, I think. That it's hard to, it's sometimes easy, I think, to think that, well, I'm the one who was hurt, so I deserve to have things my way. That should be my recompense. And we are so limited by our own experiences and our own pain that it can be really easy for us as humans to not serve truth when we seek our own brand of justice. And I think Dying for Revenge really plays that out for like all of the characters in some way, even the minor ones, I think, because like Carolyn said, there's a big cast. But what I like about what Barbara Golder did with that big cast is you knew who everybody was. Yeah. There was never any confusion about who was, whose brain we were in at any time. So it was really, clear, crisp writing in that respect. In all respects, I really enjoyed that book. But it's just like that underlining theme of justice isn't what we make it. It's something objective and truth.
Right.
So
I think we see that a lot with the priest character too. If Father Mark, and his whole story arc too, and there's a whole other dimension to truth there and to perception of truth.
Mm. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Well, I think it's interesting too, because at the end you've got, oh, sorry. In the end, you've got fine. Like, am I here?
You're here. You're lagging a little, but we can hear you, so it's fine.
Okay. Well, that's okay. My brain's probably 5 seconds behind that. What I was gonna say, which if I can get it out here, I find it interesting in the end because we sometimes think of justice as like always having kind of a punitive. We like justice is, getting what you deserve in a negative sense, like getting the punishment you deserve, or and also, ultimately the murder being brought to justice, but being stopped. But then also you get with the main character, what she truly deserves is the peace that she ultimately finds. Mm-hmm. It takes her accepting that fact that she does, to a certain extent, deserve to be able to let go. And right. in a way she finds
she's still alive.
Justice.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, so there's that, and I think that's why the resolution, again, not to give anything away to anybody who hasn't read Dying for Revenge, but I think that's why, blasphemous thing I've ever said about books in my entire life, I think that's why I was more satisfied with the ending of Dying for Revenge than I was with To Kill a Mockingbird. I know everybody gasp now, everybody be horrified, everybody, have your moment of nightmare shock, but let's talk about To Kill a Mockingbird, because, okay, here's the thing. I read To Kill a Mockingbird in high school, and I use that term loosely, mostly because I was dating a boy at the time. So, like, fairly little schoolwork got done.
Something comprehension, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, so fairly little actual work got done my senior year, a fact of which I am now quite ashamed. Let's all have that out there. So I mostly, in order to, I'm not even sure if I passed the test, but I didn't fail English by any means. Not that year. A quarter in sophomore year, yes, but not that year. Hi, Mr. Probert. Anyway, so I relied mostly on the movie in high school. And then when I was a young adult and working, and before kids came along, I'd set like a couple years. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take this year or however long it takes to read the things that I should have read in high school and didn't actually read them. So I read To Kill a Mockingbird, and I loved the writing and the imagery and the dialogue and all the characters, and it was great. And you could smell and taste the air, and that was wonderful. But when I got to the end, I'm like, okay, I don't get it. I must be missing something, because everybody loves this book. I'm just missing something. I'll just tell people I love this book. But then when I read it this third time to prepare for tonight, I got to the end. I felt so betrayed. So absolutely betrayed. And this is why I am going to hold on. I'm not going to read Go Set a Watchman, because I know it will just absolutely infuriate me. I don't want to, no, I mean, I have to live in a world, but I was so angry that the happy ending was because the one character who was supposed to be this bastion of integrity hid the truth. And I am not having that. I'm not having it. I can't call it a good thing. Somebody talk to me about this, please, because I'm really upset.
Well, I didn't read it. I didn't even pretend to read it in high school. It was never assigned to me. It was just one of those things. 6 years ago, I was trying to fill in the gaps. Hey, I should have read this book somewhere along the line. So I picked it up and read it. And I enjoyed the book too. There's the same reasons you were saying. It's well written. You really get a sense of the setting and the mood and everything. And I didn't really give a whole lot of thought to the ending. So in preparing for this, I went back and I'm looking at Cliff Notes. So I can I'm refreshing my memory. But you know what? It is kind of unsatisfying, because it's just we just have to settle. That's kind of how it is.
Yes.
Messed up world, and oh well.
And I'm so angry, because especially in our culture right now, it's March of 2017. There's all this racial unrest. And I don't want to hold up this book that says the only way that you can get justice is by hiding the truth.
Yeah.
I don't think this world was made so that the only way we can conquer racism is by lying to each other.
Right. Yeah. And
no. Lies are never good, because that means there's no resolution. That's why I'm saying Dying for Revenge was more satisfying in its resolution than To Kill a Mockingbird was. Because all To Kill a Mockingbird did was show that, well, eventually the bad guys will get you down.
Right. Yeah, and
the bastards will get you down.
Is it even in character for Atticus Finch, who was supposedly so bold and did his job, did what he thought was right without care for what was being said about him? But in the end, like you said, he's beaten down. He just has to accept it.
I think it's that, but it's also he puts his children first, and that this decision he makes in the end is primarily for the sake of taking care of his son. I'm not saying it was necessarily the right.
Wait. No, because the evidence. Maybe I did miss something. The evidence says that. Anybody who's not read it's an old book. So if you haven't
sorry, I just got my characters mixed up.
Okay. He was protecting Boo Radley.
Yeah, you're right.
He was ready to take his son to court.
That's right. I'm sorry.
The mentally ill person to court.
Yeah.
Right.
And
no, you're right.
I don't. Go ahead. See, I knew we'd have a good discussion about this.
So my problem is I read it. I started rereading it. This is as far as I got in rereading it this week. And I kind of forgot the ending, so I just flipped over while you were talking about it. And I'm like, wait, I can't remember what happens to the ending.
Well, that's why there are three of us. That's why there are three of us. We can come three of us.
There is, I discovered on Amazon Prime Video, there is like a little cheat for how to kill a mockingbird that actually goes through chapter by chapter. Now, I dozed off during it, but it did refresh my memory.
Okay. Well, that's okay, but
no, you're
this guy's ready to bring his own child to court.
yeah.
But he won't bring Boo Radley to court. He's happy to lie about that because, all right, he feels sorry for the guy. You like that was Harper Lee set that up throughout the book that Atticus is sympathetic towards Boo Radley. He doesn't want people abusing him, and I can I can see it being not completely out of character, especially after what happened to Tom Robinson at the prison. In the end, I can see him like, okay, the bastards finally got Atticus Finch down. And he wasn't willing to put Boo Radley through the same thing.
And it's
because he's accepting defeat, right?
And it's not
isn't
satisfying.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't it the sheriff who represents justice who actually pressures Atticus to, just leave it alone?
Yes, it is. It is it's the sheriff. The sheriff's name is escaping me right now, but it is the sheriff at the end who is putting pressure to bear on Atticus to, saying, look, this is just the way it is. This is my flavor of justice, and this is what we're going to have, and this is what I'm going to say happened.
And it basically boils down to the end justifies the means.
Yeah,
because their perspective is we're not going to be able to get this in court. We're not going to be able to get this figured out in court. But we know what the end result needs to be. We need to do to make that happen.
Yeah, they were their own. They let Boo Radley be their executioner, and didn't pursue whether that was right or not, because they had given up faith in the justice system of Macomb County.
Yeah,
I'm just not. I don't think racism in our nation or its brothers and sisters of elitism throughout the world is ever going to be served by us saying, well, let's just cover anything up. I'm concerned that this isn't one of the books we're talking about tonight, but I just, on a friend's suggestion, I had my kids read Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, which I had never read. So we kind of read it together, and that's another one that's unsatisfying in the end. I mean, I like how the family was able to stick together, and they had the right idea of, what's right and what's wrong for how they should have been treated. But in the end, the happy ending again came about because of a lie. And I don't think racism is so impossible. It's huge. It's horrible. But no huge and horrible crime is ever going to be fixed by more crime.
Right.
And
as my mother told me, two wrongs don't make a right.
Right. And as Atticus covers up a crime, and that just seems so. It's just not the Atticus Finch that I really wanted to have at the end. I didn't want him to be broken down.
Yeah.
And he was, and it made me dissatisfied. I'm not going to say unhappy, because no matter what, the innocent guy got killed in the end. So so the bad guy did get what we as humans would kind of deep down inside hope he would get on Earth. Justice afterwards would be something different, but I'm nattering.
Well, I think too, I don't think you have to have a happy ending all the time, but art should still elevate. And I don't know that ending elevates. It deflates in some respects, Yeah,
the impression.
Yes, I agree completely with what you're saying.
Yeah. The impression that I get from To Kill a Mockingbird is it's almost like you're just kind of opening a window into this world, and you're seeing it how it is and not how it should be. But I don't think she I think you see that with the Tom Robinson trial, but you don't see it in the end. It's like throughout the book, I think you see this is how it is, recognizing this is not how it should be. But because in the end, it doesn't follow up. You get, this is what happened, but you don't get but we're not really cool with that. The vignette, it's an image, but you get the rest of, throughout the rest of the book, you get just the idea that this is just for. And I don't like that the ending doesn't, the ending kind of twists that.
Yeah, it's sort of like the triumph of relativism. And now I'm wondering if that's why our culture loves this book so much, because of the end, because it says even the toughest person of integrity will eventually bend.
So why try?
Yeah. Well, that's a terrible message.
Sorry.
That's not a message I want my kids to have.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's...
Well, and I'm wondering how it ties the title, because the title comes from saying, shoot all the blue jays you want if you can hit them, but remember, it's a sin to kill a mockingbird. It's a sin to harm something that is defenseless. And
actually, I think it says in there, hold on one second. I think it says in there that it's a sin to harm something that doesn't take anything from you, that only gives.
Right. Mm.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure Boo Radley falls under that. I mean, the whole first thing with him and the scissors.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not some poor, helpless, defenseless creature that takes nothing from you.
Yeah.
No, okay, granted, it took place in the 1930s, and mental health care was not exactly the best thing in the world in the 1930s. So I guess we do have to take into account that that's one of those things where they did the best they could.
Yeah.
But To Kill a Mockingbird was published like 1960. When was it published? I forget. Rebecca, do you know?
Un momento. Copyright 1960.
Okay, 1960. So again, mental health care in the United States, not exactly fantastic in 1960 either. And
right.
I'm not saying it's anything stellar now. Don't get me wrong. We haven't exactly righted all the wrongs meanwhile. But truth was still truth, and good was still good, even in 1930, even in Macomb County. So it just, in the end, that just didn't, the whole thing at the end just did not, it just made me angry.
Yeah.
I don't want us to be so hopeless as a nation.
I kind of felt like if it ended a couple chapters earlier, I'd have been happier.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just seeing Atticus end like that was rather annoying.
To put it mildly. I mean, I did want to see Bob Newell get his comeuppance.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't want it to happen at the sacrifice of truth, though, because truth is never served by lies. And the truth was, what Bob Newell did, just about everything he did was not just. He needed some sort of comeuppance too. And as an artist, I don't know if it should have been at the sacrifice of Atticus's character.
Yeah.
So that's just... Yeah. All right. Any last thoughts on To Kill a Mockingbird now that we've gone like 4 minutes over the limit of what
I still like the book.
What's that, Rebecca?
I still like the book.
Okay. I don't dislike it. I mean, it's, again, the imagery is wonderful. Just the writing and the characters are so fully developed, and it's not like without its merit, but it sure is something to think about.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yep.
All right. So it is 7:35. I had a feeling we would have no trouble filling at least half an hour talking about books between the three of us.
Yeah.
So let's wrap it up. Justice is when truth wins. That's my little definition. Go ahead and look it up in the catechism or the dictionary or, yeah. Let's all try to live with integrity, and don't let the Bob Ewells of the world get us down. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Come back to us the first Sunday in April at 7 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be talking about self-sacrifice for the month of April. That's our last, our month where it's going to be ending with Holy Week and Easter. So I thought that self-sacrifice would be a good time for that to come up. So yeah, we're going to be talking about The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein, a personal favorite of mine. Although now I'm afraid I'm going to go back and look at that and be like angry at that one too. The Well by Stephanie Lansom. I know I talked about this last year, but it's so worth going back to. And I believe,
and you get to let the rest of us talk about it too.
Yeah, I have to let everyone else talk about it too. This is no longer just the Erin show, which is frankly a big relief to me. Let it be said, thank you, Carolyn and Rebecca, for coming out tonight. And then our young adult selection is Corinna Turner's I Am Margaret, I believe, right?
Yeah, I'm Margaret.
That's the one I have not read, so I'm going to have to get cracking on that for April. Thanks, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you next month. Veritas, have a good evening.
Thanks, Erin.
Take care.
Ciao.
Thank you, Carolyn and Rebecca, for joining me on this crazy adventure. I'll see you around. Keep writing the good fight. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.